and some aren't. Right?
Yeah, and we're working on that. That's part of, having some personnel changes
Yeah.
and making sure it all gets in there, and so we're
So
working towards.
eventually they will all be put in.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I just had a quick question when I looked at this, and I think we have that information somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Do we have information related to how this total compares to other years? And I remember seeing that, but I couldn't find it in this
I
package.
don't, we've been working with the comparison all along, I don't know what was provided to you though.
Yeah, I thought it was on here, but it's not, so.
Because the last page, on the second sheet, where it says 25,644, that's the total for all the units, correct? For all the different sites?
For all the, for all the public housing stuff, yeah, that's the one page, yeah.
That's something you should have, that comparison.
I think it was in that original email we sent you.
I think it was, because I remember seeing it somewhere, but, I would just, when we approved this, I guess it's just nice to kind of have that long-term perspective. How are we doing? Is there differences? Is there anything that we need to kind of take a look at? Any trends that we're seeing? That's what I find helpful.
Yep.
If we can see a comparative analysis to identify, and again, just trends, and if this is kind of standard operating procedure for what happens, then we're good to go.
I think we did have at least the last year's on there, and we'll get that to you again.
Yeah.
And then kind of related to that, Bryce had asked a question, and I didn't respond to your email, Bryce, about vacancies last year versus this year, so I handed it out here. It's about a 0.25% difference in vacancies between last year and this year. Not real significant. 97%, 3% difference.
Okay. If we could also just get once these have all been turned over to collections, just a quick, now that that's been done,
Okay.
that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Is it hard with the staff turnover to kind of control some of this stuff or manage it?
A little bit, yeah, because there's just a lot of moving parts with
Things fall through the cracks.
governmental accounting and stuff, and and I was my first year, and we had another person's first year, and then the person who did this was in their first year, so it was kind of not the best situation, but we did the best we could.
Got a pretty competent group though.
Sure, sure, but I mean that might contribute to it too, building up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been way more turnover than we thought.
We all experience that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then we've got budget.
That was it.
That was for the write-offs.
Yeah.
I thought we did them both, okay.
No.
Same thing applies to the write-off. We had it,
No, the budget.
the budget, we had it approved via email, so it just needs to be ratified. If you may have questions, further questions.
I will move that we approve the 2016 budget that we have previously reviewed. We've approved via email, so I make a formal motion that we approve at this point.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's move on into new business with section 18.
Right, yeah, we got our consultant Rod Solomon working on this, on an application to, that goes to the, and SAC stands for,
Oh, yeah, I knew you.
goes to the SAC in Chicago.
Chicago, it's HUD's
Special.
real estate
in
dealing with the building section.
They do with this particular program, that one office deals with it all around the country. Instead of dealing with our regional office. The Section 18 program allows the disposition or the demolition of public housing. And the project has to meet certain criteria to be eligible for the program. And the biggest of which is the cost of the rehab of the building relative to the initial cost of the building. And so-
Initial cost?
I think it was the initial cost, isn't it? Yeah, the initial
And
cost.
there's an index that they used, that you have to go in and you have to set a baseline for what size units they are, how old they are, and that, and then you follow this chart and it gives you an amount per unit of the value of that property. So then you calculate that out by the number of units. Well, then you go, so that's what they look at as what they value the property as. Then you go back in and you do an analysis of what it costs to repair the building, and then you look at what percentage that number is above and beyond.
To see if it makes sense.
Yeah. They're trying to do an analysis if it's still, if the property is valuable enough to try to repair, or if it's beyond, that's obsolete.
Makes sense. So just curious, would they come in at with that value figure? Do you remember what? They're just
It's based on per door. So ours was at what, $93.53 or $9,300 per door.
okay.
So then now I went back in and we had just done in 13 with the architect that we had just done a whole analysis of that building for repairs that we needed for when we were planning on doing RAD. So we took that, and of course we added a few things that weren't there for RAD. One, relocating to repair the building was never put in there, and some other stuff. And so then we came up with a number, and we came up with what, just a little bit short of 26 million
For repairs.
for repairs.
Well, that was the total development, total project cost.
Project cost, yeah,
That included relocation and
Shit.
soft costs
and
and
soft costs and everything.
got a little crazy.
So now he's gonna take that information and they submit it, and then they gotta review it.
So, yeah, so the first thing, once we've got all the materials together, and we get your approval to actually submit, and then it goes to the SAC, and then they assign us a technical assistant from HUD, and then we'll go through all this together. And we're expecting, 60 to 90 day turnaround from the Chicago office. And then we submit a formal approval to HUD, and I'm not sure the turnaround on that. And then
Is
I'm
this for
expecting that
demolition
again.
or for sale, or for resale?
For
Sell.
disposition.
Yeah,
I
Just-
think
they lump it together.
we lump it together. We can do, some housing authorities would do a demolition or a disposition demolition, and they would take down the building and rebuild on that site. In this case, I think there's enough building structural there that it doesn't need to be taken down. Someone, we've had different developers look at it, someone can get that building and repurpose it.
Okay, and you had a question?
Is the key percentage that they look at 65% renovation costs as to the original cost of construction?
Well, it's an amount they set. I'm not sure where they got that amount from. It's just when you go through their whole chart, when you get done, it says that if the cost is not more than 65% of it, then it's not viable to do. So it's a number that the federal government has set. nothing I came up with, it just says in there, this is how much.
That's
it's
what I
gonna be.
read, is 65%.
Yeah,
And then, but we have other issues, even if we were to rehab it, Mark, we don't have any place to put the tenants for the 2-year period where we would need to rehab it, so. There's lots of issues we've gone over here for 8 years to arrive at this point. And then once we, assuming we ultimately get HUD's approval, then we are told to get as long a time as we need to actually do the disposition. So we would have 2 or 3 years to take care of the tenants and relocate the tenants into new housing or the vouchers in Section 8. And I guess my thought was there, if we could, once we get approval, if we can do a sale and someone agrees to postpone possession for a couple of years, we could borrow against that.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, if we could put it up
And
for
build
sale.
with that money.
Wow.
If they're willing to agree to
Yeah, but I guess I think when we first put it on the market, that would be a condition of sale, and see if we get some takers with that condition. I don't know, pretty big condition.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so,
But,
and then lots of things have to happen. We need, it has to be appraised, which hasn't been done. We're take these first steps.
So in the appraisal, do they take into account like the plumbing
Yeah,
yeah.
I think,
that's,
you look at Ken's the expert on appraisals. They look at
they probably
prospective
take
income.
a renovation, they'd assume it's gonna be another purpose building type thing, so they probably would have to include some kind of renovation, everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Tearing all that crap that's in there,
And even if somebody.
or discounting it or whatever, too.
If somebody thought the best thing was to demo it and to put up another building on the site, even the demo was, that we had the estimate was $2 million.
That's amazing.
so you're looking for approval to go ahead and submit a Section 18 proposal?
Yeah, well, we could get that today. It isn't prepared yet. I think, and maybe it will be, but if we had 2 or 3 weeks, we might have it prepared prior to the next meeting, so that would be a good thing to do, maybe. Authorize that. Application to the SAC, and it isn't a formal application for the Section 18, it's to get a technical assistance from HUD to actually work on the application.
Okay, to get one assigned from
Yep,
HUD.
yep.
Is that something they provide, we don't have to pay for that?
No charge to us for that, yep.
Okay, so this would be application for that.
Yep.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to submit a proposal to get the technical assistant to help with the application for Section 18. Any discussion? So it's still, we have no guarantee at this point.
No, we don't. I can tell you, the consultant we've got was a HUD attorney that promulgated the regulations for this program, so now he's in the private sector, so he's no more informed person in the planet with this program, so he's helping us.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Just curious on some of the parties you've had through the building, some of the developers' potential. They've been through the building a little bit on occasion.
Yep, we've had engineers and architects go
Yeah,
through it.
but some of the guys that might be like, you mentioned the Roars or Berg, or those guys kind of been through a little bit too? What's their, when they walk around, they say, whoa, or what's kind of been
Well,
there?
the biggest single thing about the building, from their perspective,
Yeah.
is they're fairly low ceilings.
Okay.
And no, they're not 8-foot ceilings,
No,
they're
they're
7 foot.
7 foot 2 inches.
So it kind of, some restrictions on what you can do in terms of mechanical stuff, and
Sure.
but I think, the kind of discussions, they were talking about opening up the upper floor, so you have 2-story apartments, and get some
Sure.
loft kind of apartments going, so. And I think, and I've asked the city to not rededicate that land to the east of us, that's where Park West Apartments is, the Park East Apartments is being torn down. So potentially that land could be, potentially could be a part of a redevelopment of this site.
What is it scheduled for right now, just green space for the?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
park board is interested in it, I think Les is not, let's just.
Don't make any rash decisions right now.
Uh-huh.
But in one of the things, at the site as it sits now, there's not enough parking,
Yeah.
on-site parking for 248 apartments, so at the very least, it would provide adequate parking for the building, even if it were remodeled as it is, which I'm guessing it probably would be.
Not with the size of the apartments.
No. But I think, that anyway, the city is willing to keep that option open, I think that's right.
Well, that's good, that will help. Okay, contracting with BSI for New Horizons and Pioneer.
Okay, we
Touched on
kind
that.
of touched on that a little bit, I don't know how involved you want to be in that, you want to, Dan and I work something out and bring it back to you, the particulars? I think, like I said, I think the best deal from our side of the equation would be to just hire them on an hourly basis at what they propose at $100 an hour and cap it at some reasonable amount. I was thinking 150,000 maybe, which allows for 37 man-weeks of their time, which I think should be more than adequate. It would be spread over a couple-year period.
So do you put all that in writing, what the expectations would be for them to cover in
Yeah.
that?
Exactly. And some of that is laid out in our RFP, there's an RFP. in this
Or
case.
fee for that, yeah.
So that was one option that was in there.
Yeah.
And are they open to that?